Hello and welcome to what I think is part three or part four of our book review on Daniel Siegel's The Whole Brain Child. We'll be discussing chapter five today. But before we do that, just like we do every week, I like to go ahead and do a quick review of the previous chapters so that we can get into our minds what has been going on in the book so far and what are the strategies we have already discussed throughout this great book. So let's go and get started. If you have any questions or comments, please throw that in the chat box and that way I can get those. All right, so our introduction is all about surviving and thriving. We are really seeing more survival moments turning into opportunities of thriving moments. And that's what we want for our kiddos, is really for us to reframe this notion that we're just trying to make it through the day, which if you're a parent, you have felt this way. I have felt this way. Every parent, every mom I know that I am in relationship with has said that at times. And so that's what we want to really reframe for our kids and really for ourselves, is that we're not just trying to survive childhood, but we're really trying to make an environment for our kids in order for them to thrive. So Daniel and Tina, they talk about how we really need to coordinate and balance the separate regions of the brain through integration. And so the first half of this book is really all about integrating different parts of our brain. And today we'll move into working on the self, integrating the self. And so we know that there's a river of well-being, as Daniel Siegel describes it. And on either banks, there's a bank of chaos and a bank of rigidity. And so if we're going down the center of this, we have a little balance. We have a little balance of chaos, and we have a little balance of rigidity. And in those, we can find a really great opportunity to learn new things, to experience new ideas, and to find more peace and calmness within ourselves and within our children. So, but if we get off track and we get too close to one side, then it causes conflict and troubles because we have lost parts of ourselves. And so integration is all about finding this balance and finding the balance and teaching our kids how to find the balance for themselves and really reprogramming ourselves in order to help us to find this balance as well in our parenting. So we're going to offer opportunities to exercise this and really facilitate this integration throughout their childhood. Now, our left and right brain are the first two that we're talking about in chapter 2 of wanting to integrate. Our left brain is all about this logic, about order, about thinking through and planning ideas that we have. And then our right brain is all about emotion, about nonverbal expression, about facial expressions. This is how we feel the world. So our left brain is all about how we think the world. Right brain is all about how we feel the world. And so when we're born, our right brain comes into play immediately. We are ruled by our emotions. As a baby, we're upset. We're ruled by that. And so as our left brain develops, that is when we're able to think more logically, have a better sense of understanding of why something might happen. It's why kids say, why? We're like, if you ask why one more time, I'm going to go crazy. Well, that is them trying to integrate understanding the world in an emotional state within their right brain. But this left brain starts developing and they're trying to integrate this. So those why questions are really all a part of healthy brain development. And so a first strategy that we can do, remember throughout the book, we're learning 12 strategies. So the first one is all about connecting and redirecting. So the first thing we want to do is connect with our right brain to their right brain, meet them on that emotional level. And then we're going to bring in those left brain lessons. Oftentimes we want to skip to the left brain lesson and think, oh, well, if I teach them the left brain thing, then they'll be able to get control of their right brain. That is not the case. That's not how this is going to work out. It's going to work out only when we connect emotionally with our kiddo and then come back, teach them those lessons, have them experience discipline in some way in order to help them better learn. That's what's going to help them grow. So number 2 is all about naming it to taming it. We're going to talk a little bit more about this today as we talk about integrating self. But when we are raging, when we are out of control emotionally and our right brain has really taken over, what we want to do is, one strategy is to help our children name those emotions, name those feelings, so that they can get a better grasp of what is going on within themselves. And as always, the more we practice this, and really I say play this out in the everyday lives of our families, the better our kids are going to be, because they're going to see this modeled. So they see me get upset, me get emotionally overwhelmed, and then I say, oh my gosh, I am feeling very frustrated by this thing. I am feeling very sad about this event, or this something that took place, or something that someone said to me. I felt very angry. I felt very upset. As they see me model this, they too want to do this. And so the more we are aware of our own thoughts and feelings, the better that our kiddos are going to be able to do this. So chapter 3 is all about integrating the upstairs and the downstairs. So we had left and right together. Now we're going up, bottom and top together. So our bottom, remember, is all about that amygdala, all about our limbic system. Most people say this is emotions, but really this is about survival. So our amygdala is a part of our lower part of our brain. It's what get our needs met. If we're out in the woods and the snake is about to bite us and we run away and we're back to safety, well, that was our amygdala taking over. It's watching now. It's the watchdog of the brain. And our upstairs brain, so prefrontal cortex, the cerebral cortex, it's involved in thinking, imagining, planning. Hate to say it, this is not fully developed until we're like 25. So even though that 11-year-old looks really mature and she looks like she can make all the wise decisions, maybe she even thinks she can make all the wise decisions, she does not yet have the brain capacity because of her developmental age and stage in order to think through this like an adult, a fully developed adult brain can. And so what we're wanting to do, and what Daniel and Tina described throughout chapter 3, is all about integrating these two together. And so we also talked about in chapter 3 an upstairs tantrum and downstairs tantrum and how those differ. So I encourage you to go back and check those out. If you're in a tantruming stage in your house and you guys are experiencing those, please go back to the previous video, or two videos before. I think it was part 2, where we talk about chapter 3 and talk about finding out those differences. So our strategies from chapter 3 were engage, don't enrage. And guys, I don't know if you're like me, but I have definitely enraged my children. I have taken them from a place of being upset, of being frustrated, but then I do the wrong thing. I say the exact thing I don't want to say, and it just sends them flying off the handle, and I've actually made things worse. So I'm going to ask lots of questions. I'm going to try to figure out an alternative. And I'm going to try to negotiate. Now, I'm not negotiating with terrorists. So that's that upstairs brain tantrum. But if I'm here in the emotional state, I'm really going to try to look for different ways that I can engage them on an emotional level and speak to that right brain, and not really make a lot of commands at that stage, because that's going to make them fly off the handle. So strategy number 4, use it to lose it. We're going to exercise the upstairs brain. Excuse me. And then allow our kiddos to practice making these decisions for themselves. Using those breathing techniques and getting them to pay attention to their body. Guys, we need to do this too. This is good work for us too. And then number 5 is all about move it or we're going to lose it. So sometimes we are going to lose our cool. Our kiddo is on the brink of just melting down. Sometimes if we can go for a walk and take a break with our kids and say, hey, can we talk about that thing that's going on? And have them maybe exercise, get some bilateral stimulation, which is what we experience when we walk or run. this can provide an opportunity for them to really access some upstairs brain versus accessing that lower downstairs brain as well. So what happens when we get hijacked? Now, there's a whole little section at the end of chapter 3 that talks about all about parents, and we want to do no harm. We want to remove ourselves when we're in that position. And then we want to regroup, and then after we have cooled down, we have gotten control of our amygdala again, and we're thinking in our upstairs brain, then what we want to do is repair and reconnect with our kiddos. So chapter 4, yeah, we did talk about myths and memory. So chapter 4 continues and talks about how we are filing away memories in, or we think we're filing away memories like in a filing cabinet. It's actually not that systematic. It's not that even. So remember, memory is all about connecting associations, and we'll talk a little bit more about the way neurons connect today in just a minute. But this remembering also activates a lot of neurons that are similar to, but not exactly like memory, not exactly like the actual memory. So if we had a video recording of it, that's not how our brains work. So we've got this implicit memory and explicit memory, and this is all about calling back events and why we rely so much on our experiences prior to the present moment, and how sometimes that can seem a little wonky, but it's the way that we access these memories and how our neurons fire together within those times where memory is being made, and how those connections can kind of get a little, it seems like they're a little weird, right? You're like, oh, that's not how that went down, but you remember that as a scary event, but actually it wasn't scary at all. Well, it wasn't scary for us, but somehow our kiddos oftentimes will integrate memory with the feelings of fear. And so that's something to keep in mind. So review chapter 4 if you need help about, if you need just a better understanding of that memory. And so at the bottom of this slide, you can see HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Now, this is a great little acronym to use if you are trying to figure out, okay, what is happening here? Are we accessing a memory that is scary? It's making my child fearful. It's making them feel upset or out of control. Ask yourself these 4 things before you go on to thinking, okay, this is deeper. Are they hungry? Are they angry? Are they lonely? Are they tired? These are 4 needs that can be met really easily. And so once we meet these needs, if the need seems to go away, okay, then we've done what we needed to do. We have met the child where they needed us most. But if not, it seems to be deeper, then we need to do more work with memory and help them to integrate more of themselves so that they can experience more healing. So a strategy that we can use is replaying memories, kind of like a DVD. So we're telling a story, we're having them pause when they need to in order to maybe do some deep breathing, calm their body while they're doing this. And then another strategy we can do is making recollections really a part of our everyday life. So helping them to integrate their memories so that they can have a more positive experience moving forward. Okay, so let's talk about chapter 5. Now, chapter 5 is called Mindsight, or it's all about mindsight. And the way Daniel and Tina describe mindsight is understanding our own mind and the mind of another. Excuse me. And so mindsight often looks a lot like meditation. So I don't know if you kind of picked up on that as well, but as I was reading this chapter, that's exactly what I was thinking about. People who often meditate will say that they understand themselves more because they have taken the time to really evaluate what's going on inside of them. And then they are able to integrate themselves with the outside world in such a healthy way. Now, if you grew up in the South, like I did, the Deep South, then you may have heard people talk about meditation or talk about maybe like New Age religion, things like that. in a really negative way. And so I grew up thinking like, oh gosh, meditation's really for like the hippie people out there. That's really for those people who are far out there. And that's not something that we do. And then I grew up, and it's funny how you can pick up on these messages, and no one ever tells you like that explicitly. Like no one ever says that exact thing, but you pick up on these messages. And so fast forward, become an adult, I become a social worker, a practitioner, really learning more about mindfulness and what is this? And this seems strange, right? It seems like something the hippie people do, right? But actually, it's something we find across, I mean, most religions, I would say, has some form of meditation highlighted in their scriptures. And it's because universally, it is so good for our bodies. Like the way our bodies were designed is that when we calm them, we are able to know more about ourselves. The more we do this, the better it is when we are trying to interact with others and trying to integrate ourselves within the scope of what is happening in our lives. And so we're going to delve into that. Now, Daniel Siegel describes the wheel of awareness, and this is how he describes to children how to understand themselves more. Because when we get stuck in the bad stuff, and if you have a kid, you're guaranteed your kiddo has gotten stuck before, dwelling on something negative, or maybe something that's overwhelming, or something that makes them fearful. They get stuck on this, and all we can do is fixate. So here, the wheel of awareness, this is the descriptive part. And in the book, there's a description or a diagram of one, and that we'll see in just a second, of one that illustrates an example of somebody filling this in for themselves. So, but this is a way to kind of look at the body and look at ourselves in relation to this outer rim. So you see the outer rim is all about what we experience, like what we pay attention to. So you see we have like the interior of the body as a subsection. We have all of our five senses as a subsection, interconnectedness, mental activities. You see all of this. And then on the inside, the hub is like the executive part of our brain. It's like this upstairs top part. It's really the inner place of our mind. It is how we are open, aware, when we're peaceful, we're receptive, we're clear. I mean, all of these things are part of this executive part of our brain. So what happens is our kiddos get stuck and fixated on one thing. And what we want them to see is that their scope is circular. Their scope can be accessed in different ways. They don't just have to stay fixated on this one spoke. So let's take a look at this. So you can see the left one is kind of our diagram. It's our template. And then over here on the right, you can see we filled this out. Daniel Siegel has filled this out for a client named Jason. So Jason is having issues, feeling a lot of fear about his fan blades crashing down. Now, if you have a young child in your home at this stage, they probably have some of these irrational fears, right? We might say, that's a little, like, you don't need to worry about that, right? That's something we might say, yeah, oh, that's something you don't have to worry about that. I've screwed that in really tight. Look, and you might even shake the fan or whatever it might be. You check under the bed for monsters or in the closet, and you try to use that rational logic to speak to them, and it's not working. So what he did with Jason, and probably now with countless other clients, is explain to them how we have all these perceptions, memories, feelings, dreams. I mean, all of these things that come into play, and then we're here at the center. And so Jason talks about all these different parts of his life, all these different things he thinks about. And one of them was like digging a hole, and he had like a great time digging this big hole in his backyard. And maybe he's sleepy. And then thinking about mom and dad won't let anything hurt me. And so what we can do is we can help our kids to come back to the center and then see there are other things that they can focus on. And really, that's the point in this, is teaching our kids that they do have power and control over these thoughts. Now, eventually, they'll get better at this. They'll get better at saying, oh gosh, I'm feeling very fearful, but I don't have to just think about this project that's going on in second period where I have to stand up in front of the class. I can think about how I have friends in that class who care about me. I can think about how I love to go eat lunch with my friends and talk to them, and how we're learning a new game in PE. So instead of saying the entire day is going to be terrible and awful because of this one thing, what we can teach them is to come back to themselves, to come back to the center and say, what are some other things that we can focus on, that we can look at in order to help us feel more calm and more peaceful? So if this is all about understanding our own mind, then we've really got to empower our kids to understand themselves. So understanding this is really the path for them to be able to integrate with others, which is what we're going to talk about in our last section in next week, which is part 5. So in part 5, we're going to talk about integrating with others. Right now, we're just talking about integrating with self, because that's our first stage. If we can get that, we're not going to be successful integrating with others. So one way that we can do this is really distinguishing between I feel and I am. And I see this a lot in the therapy room. Because kiddos will come in and they will say, I'm bad. I was bad today. And it becomes, this badness is all about themselves instead of I made bad choices, or instead of I feel like I made some bad choices today. So instead of saying I am lonely, what I want to hear people say is I feel lonely. Because lonely is our feeling, it's not a state of being. You and I know that feelings come and go. I mean, it's what we have to tell our kiddos, right? When they fall down and scrape their knee, we have to remind them they won't always feel this pain. They won't always feel this hurt. When you lose someone, that pain won't always be there. Can you always miss them? Sure, you sure can. But we're not always going to feel this sad. We are going to laugh again. We will be happy again. We will get excited about different things. But we may always miss this person. And so a phrase I love, or a statement that the authors made, is the state becomes seen as a trait that defines who they are. And this is the downfall. This is what we get stuck in. Our kiddos get stuck here. They think, this is the way I'm always going to be. This is who I am. And instead of them saying, this is who I am, I want them to say, this is how I feel right now. I won't always feel this way. And so maybe even saying something like, this homework is hard, I'm stupid, I'll never be able to do this. Okay, when we get stuck into that kind of mind frame, then we want our kiddos to say something rather like, this homework is hard, it's driving me crazy, but I know I'm smart. It's just this assignment is really hard. And so it's a little bit different reframing of not just our brain, but also our words, which I think influence our brain. So the more our kiddos use these words out loud and say, I'm dumb, I'm stupid, everybody hates me, I don't have any friends, we can reframe those things. Then it helps to reprogram the parts of their brains through neural firing, which produces these proteins in our brain and it enables new connections. So then it becomes no longer I'm stupid. It becomes, this work is really hard and I have to put in a lot of effort for it. And so neurons that fire together, wire together. So if we want our kiddos to be more integrated within themselves, to be more at peace, to feel more calm, then we've got to do this work to where we're having them refire these neurons and break old connections to be able to make room for these brand new connections that bring them more peace. So our 3 strategies for today are strategy number 8 is we're going to teach that feelings come and go. These feelings are not going to last forever. In fact, feelings and emotions oftentimes come and go in 90 seconds. So if we could get them to embrace the feeling for 90 seconds and then let it go, then we've done our job. We have acknowledged that. We have not dismissed those emotions. We have said, I see you in that, and I want to be here with you. And we've not denied them those feelings. Oftentimes our kiddos will move on past those feelings within 90 seconds. Now, not all the time. Not all the time. Please don't email me and say, haha, my kids stayed in those emotions for 20 minutes. But oftentimes if we can catch that in the very beginning and we acknowledge and validate those, then we can get our kiddos to move on. So the next one, Daniel Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson, they love a good acronym. So we've got ourselves another acronym, and that is SIFT. And this is teaching our kids how to pay attention to what's going on inside of them. So we do this through acknowledging sensations within our body. We do that with acknowledging what images are playing in our mind, like a little movie reel. And then what feelings are we having? What am I feeling right now? And then what are the thoughts that are going on in my brain? These are the thoughts I'm having. Now, sometimes all four of these are not connected. They don't seem to have this like linear connection. Sometimes it may be like, I'm feeling really tired. And, but I'm thinking, I am looking forward to eating, mac and cheese tonight because you told me it's mac and cheese night. And then I'm feeling really excited. Even though I'm tired, I'm feeling really excited about my birthday party tomorrow. And the images that are coming to my mind are really just that boy that threw up in class. That was really gross, and it kind of grossed me out all day long. And so we may get this from our kiddo, and that's fine. We're not looking for the same thing or like some logical progression. But getting our kiddo to practice this, even when we're driving in a car, we're just like waiting in a waiting room, and we have a long time to go until the doctor calls us back. We might play this little game and say, let's play the SIFT game. I am feeling really cold today because the weather got cold and I forgot to bring my jacket. What are some of the sensations you have in your body? And get them to kind of go through this process. It could be short. I mean, it could be like a 2-minute exercise that you guys do when your kiddos get in the car after school. And then strategy number 10 is really exercising this mindset. Have your kiddo look at this. Now on page 115 and 116, there's a great little cartoon about how to explain this to your kiddos. You can actually show them a picture of this. They're, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, definitely. And I would say maybe even 1st or 2nd graders that are readers or emerging readers that might can get an understanding of this wheel and kind of the separate parts and show them how we can kind of move back and forth. Now, the book also tells us we can use really any version of that. It doesn't have to be a wheel. It could be anything. But to show them that they can come back to themselves and focus on and choose to think about something else, another aspect of themselves that is more positive, that does bring them more delight and joy versus something that just brings them aggravation or frustration. So I thought this was a really interesting way to approach knowing yourself more, integrating the many parts of yourself. And I hope that as you guys do this and think about how you can be more mindful with your children, you'll implement some of these strategies with them as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. This was chapter 5 of The Whole Brain Child. In part 4, now I keep forgetting, part 5, we're going to be discussing chapter 6. This is all about integrating ourselves and others. So having our kiddo really integrate with others. And how we're going to do that through connection. So check us out next week. If you've missed some of the episodes, check back on our YouTube channel and you can find these recordings on there. And as always, give us a call at the Coleman Center at 601-584-4704 for more information, or shoot me an email at Jennifer.Sheridan@pedalschools.com. Thanks so much, and you guys have a fantastic day.